It's no secret that the beef industry has its challenges, and cattle producers are always looking for ways to prepare their businesses to weather the next storm. One idea worth exploring is diversification, creating complementary revenue-generating enterprises that can help manage long-term risk. So how do we identify those opportunities on our own farms and ranches? That's the question we'll attempt to answer today with the help of some leading voices in the beef industry. Our first guest is Steve Wooten of Beatty Canyon Ranch in southeastern Colorado. He and his family are also the 2020 Environmental Stewardship Award national winners. Steve, tell us a little bit about your business.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, Beatty Canyon Ranch is located in the southeastern part of the state, as you said. What's unique about it is it's really remote. We are 60 miles from the nearest town, and it's in the rugged canyon country, so there's nothing but pristine pastures to graze. We're in a semi-arid environment, so farming is not a possibility. Dryland farming just cannot be done in that part of the state with any level of success. So we're a cow-calf operation. Yeah. We also raise our own replacement heifers. We're a 3-generation family on the ranch, so it's important for us to be thinking ahead about these young members of our family. When they come up, what's going to be available to them?
Our next guest is Stephanie Mock. Stephanie is the sustainability manager at Kualoa Ranch in Hawaii, which was the 2013 Regional Environmental Stewardship Award winner. Stephanie, tell us a little bit about your ranch.
Thank you. So Kualoa Ranch is about 4,000 acres, and it's located on the windward coast of Oahu, Hawaii, which is about 45 minutes away from Honolulu. And really, we looked at agri-tourism in the 1980s to diversify our cow-calf operation at that time. We've now transitioned to grass-fed beef and grow about 60 different crops. We have a year-round growing season, so we have that opportunity in Hawaii. And really, nowadays, we welcome about 750,000 guests to the property each year in a variety of tours and experiences, which I'll share more about later.
And our third panelist is Rick Coombe of Thunder View Farms in New York. Rick and his family are the 2018 Environmental Stewardship National Award winners. Rick, tell us about your operation.
We're a little unique in that we sit within the New York City watershed, which is the water supply for 9.5 million New Yorkers. And what happens on our 2,000-acre cow-calf operation affects that drinking water on a daily basis. Everybody pays a lot of attention to how we behave within the watershed, but we've developed and worked with a very unique public-private partnership to help protect that water and agriculture as we continue to grow and diversify the business as future generations think of coming home.
Well, let's get into the discussion. I'm curious to just get started. What caused each of you to explore diversification opportunities, and tell us a little bit about the process you went through to identify those opportunities. Steve?
Our impetus for diversification started back when our children were graduating from high school.
Yeah.
I have 2 daughters. We knew that probably we'd be getting some son-in-laws in the future, we hoped. But we had to look at what's the business going to look like when they come home. And so we started enterprising the business instead of everything flowing in one complete package. And the economy of the business was such that we were the last generation that could probably make a living off the ranch just with the cattle. And so for us, the first step forward was looking at the resources we have that are non-consumptive. On 27,000 acres of Beatty Canyon Ranch, we have elk, deer, antelope, bighorn sheep, bear. So a hunting enterprise was really the first step that we could do. It didn't take a whole lot of financial input, but it yielded us back some income, which was the first step we needed there.
Excellent. And Stephanie, tell us a little bit about your process and what caused you to explore diversification.
So our ranch is run by the 6th generation currently, John Morgan, our president and CEO, and his father Francis in the 80s kind of saw this opportunity with the Japanese tourism market. In the 70s they started offering horseback tours, and I really think it was just a way to get the Paniolos to do something after lunch, keep them on the ranch and maybe not taking a nap in the field. And so, you know, in the 1980s, especially in Hawaii, the Japanese tourism market was just booming, and people were really in search for adventure and opportunities. And some local characters in the tourism scene reached out to Kualoa and said, "You have this beautiful landscape, like, can we have a tour here?" And Francis, being ever the businessman, was like, let's try it. Let's try it. And from there, it's really grown to a large operation today. And all the tours really come from team meetings and our president's vision for the property and how to keep it open and undeveloped and share that love of the land with the public. And ultimately, it was a diversified income stream, using that funding from Agri-Tourism to fund our own conservation initiatives, our ranching, and our diversified farm as well. So instead of seeking grants that, might be based on political ties or, just not as much funding available, how can we get funding to keep doing the good work that we're doing?
That's quite a story. Rick, tell us a little bit about your thought perspective as you seek to diversify your operation.
Well, I think it's interesting that we had a situation where we're maxed on the cattle numbers on our land to be the environmental stewards that we want to be. And as we looked at that situation, we're a direct-to-consumer business. We carry our beef right through, and people love that story. And if we had scaled to a level that was higher, we wouldn't necessarily be able to tell that story. We wouldn't be living that story. And it's very important in our world to always make sure you do what you say you're going to do. So we started to look at other opportunities. My son is graduating from Cornell this year. My daughter will be back in a couple of years. They both want to return to the farm. So we came upon an opportunity to get into the small square hay business by picking up about 400 acres of bottom ground, and decided we'd start trying to make 30 to 40,000 small squares a year. And the weather creates a challenge. The beautiful thing about being in the East is there's tremendous value in that product. If you can produce it, you will have no trouble selling it. So we were able to leverage a lot of the equipment we had, but it's still a work in progress, but it's heading in the right direction.
So let's back up a step. How do we as producers just challenge ourselves to think outside the box and explore new options? What would you say, Stephanie?
Yeah, so I would say to that, my first recommendation for producers looking to explore is go explore. Literally get off your ranch, go to other operations that you look up to or you want to learn more about, or something that's so completely different than your operation. I've found that when looking at opportunities, if you're so focused on the ground and what you're doing in front of you, you don't have the energy and the time to look up for those opportunities that you might not even logically think about. I think something that we also all talked about was talk to your friends, talk to your colleagues, create those public-private partnerships, because you can't think of every idea that might work or might not work on your property. So be open to hearing what other people have to say, but then run it through the filter of your land best, what makes sense for your land and what makes sense for your skills and capacity at the time. Any secrets you two use to cause yourself to think a little more creatively in this process?
Yeah, Kevin. And actually, we used our daughter in her marketing, senior marketing at Panhandle, Oklahoma. She decided that she was going to take an economic dive into what can be done with the junipers. Southeast Colorado has a major encroachment of juniper forest down there. Okay. It's reduced our carrying capacity by 50% in some pastures. And so she was looking at, could we wafer it? Could we make bedding out of it? And the tree is sufficiently safe for livestock bedding, okay, or OSB board. The problem is you can ship chips from Canada all the way to Southeast Colorado cheaper than we could put the plant in and deliver it 60 miles to Lahana. And you can't compete with Weyerhaeuser and Georgia Pacific for OSB. So we do that in each one of the thought processes we have. We do an economic analysis, cost and return, and then can we compete in the market with what we're looking at doing?
Does it make sense? Yeah.
I would simply say generationally is the challenge often, right? And as a multi-generational operation, you have to respect where you've been and the people that got you there. But simultaneously, I think you do have to challenge and you have to push. And I've been incredibly blessed by having that previous generation being open to ideas. And without that open, they've realized their time has come to continue to work. They feed cattle every day, they take care of the animals, but they're more than happy to let us take the operation in a different direction, or a further direction. I shouldn't say a different direction.
I want to zero in on this agritourism. You really prompted my attention on that, Stephanie. 750,000 guests at your ranch a year. Hard to imagine that, Steve, down in southeastern Colorado. But tell us a little bit about the agritourism business, first of all, Stephanie, and perhaps you two can add in your experiences as well.
Absolutely. So One benefit of agritourism is you are connecting with the public on a day-to-day basis, and they are able to connect with agriculture, which, you know, producers and people who manage property take for granted. Hopping up on a horse and riding the property, that is an extremely new experience for a lot of people.
Sure.
So agritourism really is a chance for you to look up and out into your community a little bit more and connect with them on their level, because there's no way the public can have 50 years of ranching experience and immediately know what to do on the property. I think one benefit of agritourism is, you know, we talked about the diversified income streams, but it really helps educate the public about agriculture. It creates an idea of what agriculture is, when especially there's so much media that demonizes agriculture in any form. It's a chance to connect with people on a personal level, and you're hopefully creating agriculture advocates in the future. It's a lot harder to demonize someone when you know them personally. So I think that's kind of one huge benefit of agritourism, besides, you know, obviously the economic benefits we've talked about.
And Steve, you all did some agritourism over time as well, did you not?
Yes, we have. That was one of the second earliest enterprise that we added. We still do, not to the scale, and we changed it from an original horseback, chuck wagon, camping, fire cooking enterprise to where we invested in a lodge where we could have beds and give more opportunities to it. And what we found is we can draw people out of Colorado Springs, Denver area, the major metropolitan areas in Colorado, and that gives us a chance to get them on the ground, touch and feel, and really get a picture. And that's our goal. Is we don't need to speak to the folks in our area, they get it. We want to be able to draw and talk to the people that come there and give them an experience in Southeast Colorado that they didn't expect to find in the farming and ranching community.
So for the person who's watching this show and is inspired by your stories and wants to diversify, what do you recommend? Rick?
You know, run the numbers. Think outside the box, but spend your time running the numbers. It's not as always as easy as you think it is, and make sure you put a lot of conservative nature in the business. You know, those 30,000 small squares didn't all grow last year. You know, actually they grew, they just couldn't be harvested because of the weather, so we had, you know, a massive amount of baleage, which doesn't have a market in the East, you know, and so I just think that business end of it, don't get away from that. I mean, don't let your excitement and everything not focus on the business, because you don't need to complicate your life if it's not going to enhance your life.
That's a great suggestion, Stephanie.
Running the numbers, absolutely. Looking at your own operation and the skill set that other people in your operation have. Steve made a great point about his daughter and her marketing mind, looking at opportunities for Juniper. There's so many different skill sets. Tap into your network for ideas. And then additionally, I would also say, like I said before, go explore other opportunities. Even if it's just going to Steve's ranch and checking out what his lodge looks like or how he does signage with guests. Ultimately, it's running the numbers, making sure you feel comfortable with it, even if it feels a little strange, because it is change, and then being not afraid to experiment, and if it fails, you can just adapt.
That's right. Just find one new way that it didn't work and explore new ones. Steve, what would you recommend?
In our business, we tend to be very independent, centrally focused individuals. We make decisions every day, major decisions to minor decisions every day. When you start to look at agritourism, I think one of the things your family needs to sit down and have a discussion about is, can we make that change to being a service-oriented enterprise? Yeah. Can we shut down that side of the business, and when the guests come, they get our full attention? You know how hard it is when you're at a restaurant and all of a sudden the waitress is on the phone talking at home and you'd like to have your meal delivered. If they come to your place and they don't get your full attention and your appreciation, so the family has to decide, can we do that? Is that something that we are collectively, or one of us, like Stephanie said, is there one of us that really is an outside, outward going person? That person gets to take the lead in that enterprise and everybody else works for them. The other thing that's difficult, and I agree with both of them on the finances side, this may be the first time in your life that you've really needed to take a look at liability on the operation. that bringing guests on comes with a certain level of liability, and you need to take care of that aspect of the business and create your new enterprise in a standalone enterprise. You're trying to make money for the operation. Don't let the cattle operation subsidize this one. So make it pencil on both sides of the balance sheet.
And don't put your core operation at risk
That's
from a liability
exactly right.
standpoint.
You're
Great
right.
point.